Sophos Firewall features and the attack kill chain. The Sophos Firewall is a fully featured firewall and security device that can be used in many different scenarios. It can be placed at the edge of the network or inline behind other security devices. It can be the sole point of security for a network, operating at the edge and providing multiple services, or be used to augment an existing implementation providing services that other devices lack. We will now look at the protection features offered by Sophos Firewall. To do this, we will show adversary tactics and techniques and how Sophos Firewall is able to stop complex attacks. By reviewing these techniques, you will get a better and more reliable understanding of Sophos' ability to stop the attacker's techniques at each of the attack phases. The first part of the anatomy of a cyber attack is reconnaissance and weaponization. Cybercriminals usually start by passively researching and gathering information about the target organization, for example, email addresses of key players in the organization such as CEOs and company directors. During passive reconnaissance, the attacker is not touching your network or systems, so there is nothing to detect. During active reconnaissance, an attacker may actively look for network ranges, IP addresses, and domain names, using port scanners or finding information about the company being sold on the dark web. Weaponization is typically carried out on the attacker's device, therefore weaponization is not detected. The delivery stage of an attack is when an attacker accesses your estate through an attack vector, for example an email, and deliver malware to a specific target. This is sometimes referred to as delivering a weaponized bundle to a target. Attackers may send emails to users asking them to click on a link or go to a website that is compromised. This is referred to as phishing. Typically, in a phishing scam, you will receive an email that appears to come from a reputable organization and will sometimes include attachments which, if opened, can infect a device. Attackers will use social engineering tactics over social networks, emails, applications, phone calls, text messages, and in person to get people to reveal sensitive information. Typically, the attack is designed for some of the following purposes: phishing credit card account numbers and passwords, hacking private emails and chat histories, hacking websites of companies or organizations and destroying their reputation, computer virus hoaxes, and convincing users to run malicious code. Many malware infections begin with a user visiting a specifically designed website that exploits one or more software vulnerabilities. This can be triggered by a user clicking on a link within an email or browsing the internet. This type of infection will happen silently. Genuine websites can be compromised by attackers who place malicious advertisements on the site. In other cases, traffic to the website may be redirected to the attacker's server. The redirected site is designed to look authentic and usually requests a username and password to log in. Sophos Firewall protects you by scanning HTTP and HTTPS traffic for unwanted content or malware. Web filtering provides predefined filters that automatically block access to categorized websites, such as gambling. Live protection provides real-time lookups to Sophos labs to check for any threats and prevent them from infecting the device. Farming protection prevents users from being redirected to fake or compromised websites, and certificate validation validates websites' certificates to ensure legitimacy. File type filtering is based on MIME type, extension, and active content types, which can be used to block macro-enabled documents. Enforcing Safe Search, which is a feature of Google Search, acts as an automated filter for potentially offensive content. The web protection feature is customizable. For example, restricting users' surfing quota and access time allows control over what users can access and when. If you wanted to restrict your users from being able to access websites that are not business essential, you can place a restriction in the web policy that blocks access to non-business sites, for example, social networking sites. To protect against email attacks, email encryption and control can be used. The email scanning engine will scan all inbound emails for malicious content. You control what emails can be received into your network. IP reputation is enabled, allowing you to determine whether you accept, reject, or drop emails that are sent from known spam senders. File type detection is configured to scan and block specific file types. For example, you can block or quarantine any macro-enabled files. The email scanning engine will also detect phishing URLs within emails and block those emails accordingly. as well as scanning inbound and outbound emails for malicious content. Email protection allows you to encrypt emails so that you can send sensitive data securely out of your network. It uses SPX encryption for one-way message encryption and recipient self-registration SPX password management. This encryption is simple and secure and does not require certificates or keys. It also allows users to add attachments to SPX secure replies to allow your users to securely send files. Email protection also uses our data loss protection, DLP, engine, which automatically scans emails and attachments for sensitive data. Sophos Zero-Day Protection uses next-gen Sandbox technology with integrated deep learning, giving your organization an extra layer of security against ransomware and targeted attacks. It integrates with your Sophos Firewall and is cloud-delivered, so there's no additional hardware required. It's the best defense against the latest payload-based malware lurking in phishing attacks, spam, and file downloads. Let's look at how Sophos Zero-Day Protection tests for and identifies possible malware. The Sophos Firewall pre-filters traffic using conventional security checks, including anti-malware signatures, known bad URLs, and so forth, so only previously unseen suspicious files are submitted to Sophos, ensuring minimal latency and end-user impact. If the file is an executable or has executable content, the file is treated as suspicious. Sophos Firewall sends the file hash to Sophos to determine if it has been previously analyzed. If the file has been previously analyzed, Sophos passes the threat intelligence to the Sophos Firewall. Here, the file will be delivered to the user's device or blocked, depending on the information provided by Zero-Day Protection. Sophos Firewall keeps a local cache of file hashes and the results in a local database to prevent unnecessary lookups. If a file hash has not been seen before, a copy of the suspicious file is sent to Sophos. The file is executed and its behavior is monitored. Once fully analyzed, Sophos passes the threat intelligence to Sophos Firewall, which will determine if the file is allowed or blocked. Finally, Sophos Firewall uses the detailed intelligence supplied by Zero-Day Protection to create deep, forensic reports on each threat incident. Amongst the layers of protection within our sandbox is deep learning, which protects against the latest unseen advanced threats like ransomware, crypto mining, bots, worms, hacks, breaches, and advanced persistent threats without using signatures. Deep learning uses a set of algorithms that try to replicate the way a human brain would solve a problem. By looking at the features of an object, it decides as to what that object is. Let's relate this to securing your network. The deep learning model is trained on millions of samples of known good and bad files. It is taught the features, the size, compression setting, printable strings, vendor, and so forth of these files, which are then labeled. The model is then trained to determine the features of a file to create a learned model. When a file is tested with this model, deep learning evaluates portable executable files on a machine at the time of execution within the sandbox. The engine predicts if the file is malicious or legitimate based on the file characteristics, which have been learnt from the samples the model has been trained on. The prediction is returned, and the file is categorized as malicious or legitimate. Application control works on several levels to help protect your network. The most obvious of these is reducing the attack surface by controlling what applications are allowed. For example, users cannot download infected files through peer-to-peer applications if you are blocking them. Application control can be used to block various types of application, including unwanted applications. Some applications are non-malicious and possibly useful in the right context, but are not suitable for company networks. Examples are adware, tools for administering PCs remotely, and scanners that identify vulnerabilities in computer systems. Peer-to-peer or P2P networking applications. P2P applications can contain vulnerabilities and can also act as servers as well as clients, meaning that they can be more vulnerable to remote exploits. High-risk applications. Sophos categorizes all applications. This means that you can apply the high-risk application control policy, and it will block all and any new applications categorized as high-risk. For example, proxy and web storage applications are often high-risk, and very high-risk applications. The very high-risk category allows you to block all applications classified as very high risk. An example of this would be TOR proxy, Super VPN, and App VPN. On average, 60% of application traffic is going unidentified. Static application signatures don't work for custom, obscure, evasive, or any apps using generic HTTP or HTTPS. Synchronized app control on Sophos Firewall automatically identifies all unknown applications, enabling you to easily block the apps you don't want and prioritize the ones you do. What this means is that you can now identify and deal with the unknown threats and unwanted apps that are running on your network, putting your organization at risk and impacting user productivity. Users continue to be the easiest target for attackers, but an army of trained, phishing-aware employees can provide you with a human firewall against these threats. Let's look at the next attack phase, exploitation, which is defined by leveraging a vulnerability to execute code on a victim's machine. An exploit is basically a method or a tool used for abusing software bugs for nefarious purposes. By their very nature, web servers need to be accessible from the internet, but this makes them targets for attackers who may be trying to extract data or install malware to compromise other users visiting the website. Attacks can take many forms, including cross-site scripting, XSS, attacks using protocol violations and anomalies, cookie signing, SQL injection, or other generic attacks. Sophos Firewall includes comprehensive web server protection, which is bundled with pre-configured templates to make protecting commonly used web-facing servers like Microsoft Exchange as easy as possible. Web Server Protection acts as a reverse proxy protecting web servers on the internal network or DMZ from inbound traffic. Web Server Protection uses a web application firewall to filter traffic, harden forms, sign cookies, and scan for malware. Web Server Protection can also authenticate incoming connections with a username and password before they even reach the web server. Vulnerabilities and exploit kits can be protected against using intrusion prevention systems. IPS monitors network traffic as it passes through the firewall for malicious activity. It logs the activity and attempts to block and prevent the infection, and then reports the activity. Please note that intrusion prevention is not designed to replace applying software patches to fix bug and security vulnerabilities. The command and control phase of an attack is when installed malware makes a connection to a malicious server. In a typical advanced persistent threat, the communication with a command and control host is a repeated process. This allows malware to adapt as more knowledge is gained by the attacker. Complex malware includes communication to remote servers for further instructions and updates, or to upload and download further files. Active Threat Response monitors global outgoing traffic. It blocks outgoing network traffic attempting to reach malicious servers. This prevents remote access Trojans from reporting back to their malicious servers. If Active Threat Response detects a threat, an alert will be recorded, and the number of detections will be shown in the control center. An administrator can then check the alert for additional information about the threat, such as the affected device's IP address, the affected device's hostname, the threat and number of times the rule was triggered, and the user and offending process. This process allows the administrator to clean up the threat while the device is isolated, protecting the rest of the network from becoming infected. This stage of the attack varies depending upon the type of malware. For example, a ransomware attack will look to encrypt data and demand a ransom, whereas spyware tends to log the keystrokes of victims and gain access to passwords or intellectual property. Next, we will review some of the Sophos Firewall Protection components that detect malicious threats. Server and endpoint protection can be used to assign every device a health status. In the event a device is compromised, it can be automatically isolated from other parts of the network at the firewall, as well as blocking network connections between other healthy devices. This limits the fallout of a breach, stopping the spread of malware by providing lateral movement protection. Even on the same broadcast domain or network segment where the firewall has no opportunity to block the traffic. We're effectively pushing isolation enforcement out to endpoints so they can help the firewall isolate any threats and keep the network secure. Email protection stops data from being leaked outside of the organization by email. You can create data control lists from the Content Control List, CCL. CCLs are based on common financial and personally identifiable data types. For example, credit card or social security numbers, postal or email addresses. When Sophos Firewall finds a match for the specified information, it applies the action specified in the policy. Digital security and physical security have many parallels. Think of a building and how it could be protected. If you were to build nothing but a giant wall, it may prove difficult to climb over, but eventually someone will find a way to get over it or under it. Now, consider a fortress. Armed guards, attack dogs, CCTV, tripwires, barbed wire, motion sensors. It may be possible to hop the wall, but you still have many additional hurdles ahead of you.